Good morning. I'd like to start our time together by having a moment of reflection. Let's think about a time when you felt the most grateful in your life. When I take a moment to think about that, I reflect on the 10 days that my son spent in the NICU after he was born. It was a very difficult time, as you can imagine, for new parents when you're struggling with your son being attached to all these different cords, all these different monitors, trying to figure out what's going on with them. I'm sure some of you have also had those moments of medical crisis within your own families. One thing that I found solace in during that time in the NICU was the care that the NICU nurses took to make us feel like that moment we were the only people that mattered. The care for our son was all that they were focusing on. Now, my son wasn't the sickest person in the NICU. He had a hard time where he couldn't breathe and eat at the same time, and the muscle at the bottom of his esophagus hadn't formed quite yet, so he had to spend a little bit of extra time in the hospital to get some care. What I can tell you is that the nurses at St. Vincent here in Toledo were some of the greatest people on this planet. They took every moment to make us feel like our child's care was the only thing that they were focused on. And that was their jobs, right? They weren't a friend, they weren't a family member. They were there to ensure that the little things mattered. And I felt so grateful the entire time that we were there. When I felt that gratitude, I wanted to show them that I felt that gratitude. And I did this in little ways, giving them a hug, if they were okay with a hug, writing thank you notes to all the different nurses that we came across. One day we ordered lunch for them, just little ways to show that we appreciated what they were doing, because I knew at the end of the day, this was their job, and they were gonna go home back to their families after their shift was completed. What I want us to reflect on is, how does this connect to your job? Those nurses were doing their job, and we can't all be NICU nurses. Unfortunately, we're not all going to be going in and saving lives every day, but we all have something that we do that we care about, or that we're really good at, or that we want to show that we have passion around. Think about a time when you've been at work and you get recognized and how great that feels. You feel so happy, like you've done something that matters. And that's what we want to talk about with the remainder of our time together is, what is gratitude? What does it mean to show gratitude? And how are ways that you can incorporate gratitude and thankfulness in your job every day? Now, gratitude is a feeling. It's a feeling inside of you around happiness and thankfulness. And appreciation is the action of showing thankfulness. It's easy to sometimes get confused and say, oh, I'm so appreciative, or I have such gratitude. The words can be interchanged, but really gratitude is the feeling and appreciation is the action. I really enjoy this quote by Sarah Christensen that talks about gratitude being the soil that appreciation is sown into and grows out of. That's how I want you to think about appreciation today. Gratitude being the foundation, that nutrients inside of you that can nourish the appreciation that you can show every day in your career and with the teams that you lead. So why does the feeling of gratitude matter? This is a graphic that I came up with that shows how gratitude is directly linked to employee well-being and then ultimately with job satisfaction. And it's easy to say, gratitude improves job satisfaction. But you have to take into consideration, there are a lot of different things that go into job satisfaction, but gratitude is one of them that we're going to highlight. Gratitude is directly linked to happiness and well-being. And as a leader, sharing gratitude with your team through the action of appreciation is what I call influential gratitude. There are a few key factors to take into consideration when you look at this model. Showing appreciation is necessary to move the feeling of gratitude to an external force that can influence. The cycle will not continue. You can't get to that job satisfaction if you're not going to do the physical act of showing appreciation. That ties back to talking to the NICU nurses. If they didn't hear me say thank you, how would they know that I felt gratitude for the work that they were doing every day? So the core of this discussion is to talk about how could you incorporate gratitude into your job every day. Like I mentioned, think about how you feel when your boss says, "Great job, I really like what you did there." Or you have an employee of yours come up and say, "I feel so thankful for X, Y, and Z." That makes you feel good inside. You feel happy. Showing appreciation is the vessel. The vessel for showing appreciation should vary depending on the dynamic of your team. You guys know your teams, so take into consideration, are they outgoing? Are they lively? Do they like to be recognized in large group settings? Or maybe they're a little bit more reserved. You have a small team, you like intimate settings. Understanding your team and what they would like best for showing recognition and having that feeling of appreciation is really important. If you have somebody on your team that might be a little shy and reserved, it's probably not going to go over well if you call them out in a really large group meeting and they have to come up on stage really scared and nervous. So when you're showing appreciation, make sure you take those things into consideration. The two biggest ways to show appreciation are in large-scale formal praise or in intimate small group or individual recognition. At the end of the day, though, the biggest thing to consider when you're showing appreciation is that it has to be meaningful, intentional, and genuine. I think you've all been somewhere where you say, "Hey, thanks, sounds great, thank you," but you can tell it's just something you say. It's like a greeting. "Thanks, sounds great." But when you take a moment to say, "I really appreciate what you did for me," the second to really think about the words that you're saying when you're engaging with that person, it matters, taking that extra time to show how you feel. Like I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of variables that can impact employee well-being, but appreciation can play a big part in their work experience. An article in the Journal of Business and Psychology states, employee psychological well-being has substantial consequences for individual and organizational health and functioning. Their study took a closer look at workplace gratitude interventions, and they proved that well-being of employees increases when there are gratitude interventions. Gratitude interventions have been associated with less worry, increased happiness, and overall life satisfaction. And who doesn't want that for their employees? I think we all want that for ourselves and for our teams. And these ideas around showing appreciation are small ways that you can impact the well-being of your employees. I think most of us know this, but if you're happy at your job, that usually increases your team productivity, your overall performance. The teamwork is better. The dedication of your employees is better. They are going to want to work for somebody who shows them appreciation. To bring this all full circle, remember that employee that you reflected on or that moment where you felt the most gratitude. Without that person, who might be your go-to person, they impact your organization, you might not have as an impactful team at your job. And it's really important that you tell that person thank you. I don't know the last time that you might have thought to give them some one-on-one praise or called them out in a group meeting, but now's your time. My ask for all of you coming out of this short introduction to influential gratitude is that you commit to writing a handwritten thank you card to each, not to each person, but to at least one person on your team. And I've come here today with thank you cards that I'm going to hand out for everybody. And when you write that card for your employee, think long and hard about the words that you write down, because they will matter. I don't know about you, but I have a couple notes tucked away in my drawer at work that I've gotten over the years, just words of encouragement or words of gratitude from people that I've worked for. And when times are hard, I like to take out those notes and think about the words that were said and reflect on that time. We've only really scratched the surface of what influential gratitude means, but I hope you can walk away from this discussion really intrigued about how you can take this thought back to your workplace and start incorporating that in every day. Thank you.